Welcome, everybody. You have tuned in to the Relationship Explorers podcast. I am one half of your host, and my name is Tim.
And I'm the other half. Shoot.
We really appreciate you guys joining us today. We've trying to establish this podcast as a place where two brothers, Shu and I, can have honest conversations about all sorts of relationships, personal growth, communication, marriage, friendship, family, and really ultimately what it means to become better human beings. And before we officially launched the podcast, we felt there was one conversation that could not wait. And so we're going to have that conversation today.
Yeah, June is Men's Mental Health Month. And it's unfortunate, but too many men are fighting battles that nobody knows about.
Yeah, so true. So before we actually start exploring relationships in general, we wanted to explore one of the most important relationships that we have, and that is the relationship with ourselves.
That's so special and so important. And bro, you know why that is so important? I'm going to share that. Because the blueprint of our relationship with ourselves becomes the blueprint of the relationships that we will have with everyone else.
Yeah, that is a word. Can you go into that a little bit more? What would you say?
Yes.
Or,
So,
maybe just give us what that would look like, this blueprint. How would it show up?
yeah, I can certainly give you an example of that. So it could look like a person could reason with themselves that if I don't forgive myself, then I'm going to many times struggle to forgive others. And part of the reason that could exist is because of how an individual is brought up or raised.
Yeah.
And even coming from the same household, bro,
Yeah.
I think we were even raised a little differently,
Without a
you
doubt.
know? Yeah. So the generation that I was coming up with, a person could unconsciously feel that they're not worth the forgiveness. And so when it comes to forgiving others because of how they were trained and it's in their unconscious, well, then they consciously aren't really able to freely forgive others. And
Yeah.
again, it's because of the relationships that that person has growing up, with mother
Yeah.
and father and, uncles and aunts and things like that. So that's one way
Yeah.
that it could be presented.
For sure. And it seems like that it would naturally cause conflict in a relationship because no relationship is perfect. So without having that ability to forgive or struggle to forgive, man, without a doubt, you're going to have some rocky relationships.
That's
So,
right.
yeah,
That's right. And then something that I've encountered with relationships, individuals that feel like they don't value themselves. So the outcome is that they may tolerate treatment that just is unhealthy. It's not beneficial. Uh, that just calls to mind a young man that I knew. And well, you knew him also,
yeah,
but because he wasn't able to really love himself and to see the value that he presented to people, to outsiders. He was directly affected by that maltreatment by others. And that could have been interpreted by others because he wasn't aware enough of how to express himself or how to communicate the things that he was feeling. So he just kept them inside. And because he kept those things inside, when the opportunity arose for him to be able to talk them out with someone who would take the time, it was just a flood of emotions and conversation because there was no one there to nurture or encourage those conversations while he was growing up,
Yeah,
growing into manhood.
so true. Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, I kind of think of this whole idea of valuing yourself. Being a small business owner, I have a cleaning business, and it is essentially up to me to present how much I value this service that I'm going to give you. So I have to understand what value I have and what I'm bringing to this potential client. So if I, and this is, it's an evolution of going from thinking you know what your value is and then understanding I'm actually more valuable than I thought. Because in the beginning, I didn't charge as much. But as I grew in the business, I understood we actually bring a tremendous amount of value to people. So I'm going to charge accordingly. And for sure, we can apply that to ourselves. If we don't value ourselves, then we're going to be presenting ourselves in a certain light, in an unfavorable light, I would say. And so it makes sense that there are men out here who are just struggling because they don't even know their own value.
That's right. And then you have to factor in those who kind of like me and those emotions and feelings, not being able to express your emotions just for yourself. So when it comes to having a relationship, trying to express emotions, that relationship is just going to be very shallow
Yeah.
because the individual hasn't learned, well, what does this feeling mean?
Yeah.
And then even if they do understand what it means, do they know how to express that
Right.
to someone else?
Right.
And so because a lot of times that's where the disconnect comes, not knowing how to express it to someone else, it's just easier, it's more comfortable to just keep it
Yeah.
inside.
Yeah, so true. And I think, and obviously, when we speak on the podcast, a lot of times we're going to be speaking in generalities, but I think women are just better equipped for expressing themselves emotionally than men are. And it's not a, what am I trying to say? It's not something that is done a lot as a young boy growing into manhood. We don't necessarily have a platform to be able to express our emotions without it feeling some kind of way or being perceived some sort of way.
Right.
So yeah, that so interesting. And I think that really kind of helps us to naturally go into this next question that I wanted to ask you, bro. So why is it? It really makes me wonder, why do so many men suffer in silence? And obviously we have some of, they don't value themselves and other things, but I wanted us to make it even more practical and talk about, you and I have done this ourselves, suffered in silence for different reasons. So I wanted us to delve into that a little bit, and maybe you tell about a time when you did suffer in silence.
Right. And some of this might spill over into something else. And if it does, that's
Yeah.
okay. But um this particular story, I woke up one morning to go to work, And as I was walking out the door, I had this just a tremendous, like, never felt experienced this before in my life. My whole left side, from my neck all the way to my foot, just a massive amount of tingling and like needles and pins and everything. So instead of going to work, I called into work and I went right to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And bro, for me,
Well, I was about to say, that was serious
yes, it was, bro.
to go straight to the hospital.
Yes, to go straight to the hospital. And again, we're having this conversation because we don't want people to have to suffer the same way that we have. So that's why we're sharing these stories. Anyway, to not go through all the details, I had to get an MRI. And after getting the MRI, my doctor, not the nurse,
Right.
not the office manager, the doctor called me
Mm-mm.
and said, I need you to go today to see this neurologist today. So this was after the results of the MRI had come
Right.
back. So the doctor told me this. I'm like, oh my goodness, this, okay.
Okay, so like what I gotta ask, what is going through your head at this point? Do you know what is happening once the doctor called and he said to go to the neurologist?
I didn't know what was happening, bro,
Mm,
but I knew that it had to be something serious,
yeah.
especially based on the amount of pain that I was
Mhm.
in.
That
Okay.
makes sense.
So I'm on the phone with the doctor. He's telling me to go to this address to the neurologist. And I get there. Belinda goes with me. And I leave that place in a neck brace, bro.
Yeah. Uh,
But here's the kicker. In the neurologist's office, he asked me a question.
mm,
He said, how in the world were you able to work with your neck in that kind of condition?
mm.
And I looked at him.
What did you say?
I said, man, Doc, I said, I'm from the generation of work now and cry later.
Mm, 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 mm.
So needless to say, this pain didn't just come up that day.
Right. Right.
And it was a compound situation from years of, doing things that probably just weren't safe,
Yeah.
with lifting weights and playing sports and all
Right.
these other things. But the amount of pain that I had dealt with for years and just wasn't trying to address it,
Yeah.
or not that I wasn't trying to address it, but I wasn't making it clear enough that I didn't want to continue suffering in silence like
Right.
I really needed to.
Yeah. Now, during this time, when all of this is happening, do you feel like anything inside of you changed?
Oh, that's a good question. Uh, I think something inside of me did change,
Mm,
especially after everything happened.
I see.
So what wound up happening, I had to have an emergency surgery,
Mm,
a procedure that was only supposed to take like an hour and a half, 2 hours, took
yeah.
about 6 hours. I was in the hospital for a week
Mm.
with a plate in my neck and 8 screws.
Man.
And I had never experienced that type of pain in my life.
Mm, mm,
And
mm,
so, yes, it did. That was a good question. It did teach me something.
mm.
And although I didn't know maybe then what that something was, from the result of what happened, I knew that I needed to start being more open
Yeah, yeah.
about things.
That
Yeah.
makes so much sense. So would you say, to kind of circle back to what we had said earlier, do you feel like you didn't have the emotional language to express what you were feeling?
I I don't know if it was a lack of the emotional language as much as it was the weight of bearing responsibility no matter what you are experiencing.
That's heavy.
Having a wife and 2 children and knowing that no one is going to just sail in and take care of everything.
Yeah,
And again, the generation and the period that I grew up in, it's the mentality of, I got this,
yeah,
I can handle it.
yeah.
So I think that may have been a little bit more pressing than the lack of emotional grammar, even though that was probably present as well.
Yeah.
But either way, to have to go through that type of pain was not worth
Mm,
waiting in silence.
yeah. Wow. And I would dare say that this is how a lot of men have been and were raised.
Yes,
You don't stop until you get stopped. You
right.
know?
Until you drop.
Right, right. I like
Yes,
that. You don't stop
yes,
until you drop.
right.
Mm, that's true.
And of course, for this experience, we were talking about physical pain,
Right, right.
but the mentality for emotional, mental, physical pain, it all comes under the same umbrella.
Yeah,
It's the mentality of, I'm okay,
yep.
I've got this, I can handle it.
Yep, man. That is so true. I really hate that so many of us kind of were in that position. But you live and you grow and you learn and you figure things out, and like we're trying to do on this podcast, is explore all of these dynamics and these relationships and stuff. Because truth be told, I had a time where I suffered in silence too, and just going. Because if you remember that time when Jenny ended up in the ICU on 2 different occasions, and her vitals were so low that the hospital staff were just not sure at all what was happening. And so the first time we went in there, it was 3 days that she was in the ICU, came home somewhat stabilized, but then within a week, we ended up right back in the ER again for 3 days in the ICU and then a couple of days just in the hospital. And so it was like for 2 weeks, it was me going to work, going to the hospital, going home, going to sleep, and just doing that cycle every day, every day.
And so let me ask you this, bro.
Yeah.
Did you feel like a robot?
Oh man, what? And you know, to that point, yes, I did. And I almost felt like I had to be a robot because if I stopped to think about, to feel, and I am a feeling person.
You are.
So just take this with a grain of salt or something because I just had to get it done. So I did become an android or a robot. It's like, gotta get to work, gotta go
Right.
see Jenny. And then the whole emotional weight that it puts on you that the doctors don't know what's wrong with her. There's no plan on what to do or what to pursue when we get out of the hospital. From my perspective, I didn't know if my wife was going to come out of the ICU alive.
Right.
Because if the doctors don't know why her vitals are so low, what am I supposed to think? You
Right.
know what I mean?
So even though there's a 14-year difference with you and I, bro.
Right.
Okay. That's a whole generation. But because we're on this topic, like, did you feel like there was no one that you wanted to talk to or could talk to?
Mm. Well, you know, I feel like you and I have always had the type of relationship where I could talk to you about and specifically these sorts of things because both of us care for our wives. But it was almost like I did not even have the energy to want to talk to anybody. I would say, a shell of myself at that time, which I'm the outgoing one. I'm always talking to people, and I
Right.
felt so helpless.
Mhm.
I'm so helpless, not knowing. It's the fear of the unknown. I had no idea what was happening, what was going to happen, if we were going to be able to get through this. And so I just kind of went silent, and I was not as expressive as I usually am.
So look,
Yeah,
yeah, that's an understatement. Okay.
yeah.
Up until that point, all the years that I've known you, you were always the jovial, bubbly,
Mhm.
talking to everyone, whether a situation was holding you down or not,
Right.
you knew how to overcome.
Yeah.
But when your big brother noticed and saw
Yeah.
what you had become
Mm.
from this situation, now I know what I saw, and you just kind of explained what, you felt helpless and,
Yes.
you didn't have a fix. But when I saw that, I was like, we have to do something.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's when me and Fika stepped in. Right.
Right. Right. They looked out for your boy. Cause I tell you, I remember Fig and Shu were like, you are not okay. And it wasn't like either of you could fix what was happening. But this is the value and the importance of community because what y'all could do, you did. And y'all made arrangements. So they got up with my mother-in-law, my wife's mom. She came to sit with Jenny, be with her for the weekend. And Shu and Fika took me to their house. And we didn't do anything incredibly special. We sat around and laughed and watched movies. And I'm sure we ate because we were going to eat pretty good if we don't do
We,
anything.
we ate. You better believe we ate.
So it was a small thing, but it was a big thing. And especially when you're in the throes of a crisis, those small things can really add up. And I didn't even know I needed it. Obviously, I knew I needed a distraction, but it's like hard to even think things out think them through when you're in emergency mode, when you are just going. And so the fact that you guys took the initiative and really stepped in and stepped up, it was exactly what I needed. It was exactly what I needed.
And so again, the importance of us sharing, because most of the time these situations are never about just one individual.
Yeah.
And so when you do have family or you have friends or you have relationships, it's so important for people to be observant, to
Yeah.
care, to be inquisitive enough without crossing barriers and lines to know, hey man,
Yeah.
what's going on with you? Or hey girl,
Right.
what's up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So true. I think the fact that I didn't have to express what I was feeling, it was seen. So that's the importance of people knowing who you are, how you operate, that type of thing, because y'all were able to understand that something is going on. And that is just so good to be able to, just rely on people who know you well enough when you don't have the wherewithal to say what you need. They can be like, well, we may not know exactly what you need, but this is what we're going to do. So I really, really appreciated that time because it was a rough time for me, not knowing what was happening with my wife. I mean, talk about having a weight on your chest, feeling like I could hardly breathe. I couldn't take a full breath of air because it's like, what is happening? I don't understand why the doctors don't know what's wrong with her. All of these things. But I mean, here we are. We got through it
Right.
and we're all the better for it. So
Right.
yeah, this story actually made me think of this gentleman named Jason Wilson who is on YouTube and does a lot of interviews and things. And basically, he said that emotional honesty is masculine strength. And wow, that hit me reflectively thinking it back to that situation. I'm like, I really like that. If I was able to express all of the things that I was feeling in an honest way, that would not have been weakness. That would have displayed strength. I just wasn't in a place to do it at that time, but I've learned so much since then. This was, and this wasn't like it was, 40 years ago. This was in 2019 when this was happening. So
Right. Right.
this is a fairly new lesson to be learned.
Yeah.
So yeah, I thought that was fitting as I was going through my story, how he said that about emotional honesty being masculine strength. But
That is definitely a interesting statement. And
yeah,
if someone was to say that in our father's generation, they would have got laughed out the room.
oh, man, yeah, yeah,
Right. Yeah.
because what even is that?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so true. And it's like you have to unlearn things as you get older because generations change, people
Yes.
change, societies change, and we have to adapt. Well, I was thinking about this question, Shu. What if crying isn't the opposite of strength? What if pretending we're okay is? We're going to flip this stuff around a little bit. What do you think about that?
So what if crying isn't the opposite of strength,
Right.
but what if pretending that we are okay is?
Yes. Yes. This is like a complete societal flip, you know?
Right. Well, like you have mentioned already about the generation, and this season that I'm in currently, and fortunately, I have people around me that are helping me to grow. I can
Yeah.
say that pretending that we're okay is the opposite of strength.
Yeah.
In the last, pretty much since we all moved up here around 2019, I have cried a few times publicly,
Yeah.
and it didn't bother me.
Mm-hmm.
So, like you were alluding to, we have to have progressive minds, and we have to always be changing and be willing to change when we know that it's a change
Yes.
for the better, when it's proven change.
Yeah.
And fortunately, like I mentioned, because I'm surrounded by people who are interested in
Yes.
relationships, that's helped me so much, because 10 years ago, I would have agreed with, yeah, emotional or crying, that's the opposite of strength.
Right.
Because
Right.
I never let people see me cry, years ago.
Yeah.
Even when
Yeah.
attending family members' funerals,
Mm.
I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't let anybody see me cry. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, and now I'm saying, wow, what kind of mentality is that?
Yeah,
And
man.
and we haven't even talked about this, but this is just coming into my mind. Like,
Yeah.
if children growing up never see their father cry, and we're talking about through difficult times, through death, through losses, through whatever bad situations,
Yeah.
what could we possibly be taking away from our children
Mm.
because we're involved in a belief system that's not really accurate?
Yeah.
How would children seeing their father cry, especially if there's a son involved, how would that help him to mature as a man?
Yes.
Or how would that help him to develop growing to manhood?
Yeah. For
How would
sure.
how would a daughter feel to know that her father has emotions
Right.
and is not afraid to show them?
Yeah. Wow. You were in my head on that one, bro.
Really?
That I went, yes, thinking
Wow.
about children.
Mhm.
And, part of, although I'm not a parent, we all know how important it is for how much children look at their parents to know how to engage with the world and with people. And a child is learning how to deal with their emotions as they grow up. And so it only makes sense that if a child doesn't see their parent have that range of emotions, that it could stunt their own development of those and perpetuate this thing of not showing emotions, and that can just show up in so many ways in so many relationships. So yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one, bro. Okay, so we wanted to keep on this line of about why men stay silent. At the end of the day, every man on this planet has a story. But if we're being honest, a lot of men don't believe it's safe to tell their story because the story is going to entail all of those things that we want to keep silent. And so
Right.
I wanted to have us discuss this. Shu, what do you think are some of the things that have men keeping all of this stuff to themselves? What would you say?
Yeah, there are probably many factors involved. And to be honest, I know some of those factors directly because, again, I've have fallen into that category.
Yeah.
Fear of maybe looking weak,
And that's
pride,
my
you know, feeling a sense of responsibility for everyone. And even so this is real vulnerability right here.
let's get into it, bro.
My goodness.
Man, you know I'm here for it.
Yes. So even as our lives change and circumstances change, when that was happening to me recently, and I was just noticing within myself, wow, it's some heavy stuff going on with me.
Mhm.
And at least I was talking to Belinda about it,
Right.
and she was listening, and she was my, you know, being my therapist. But I also saw the need again because of having family members that care
Yeah.
to take it a step further
Right.
because of seeing the damages that have come from remaining in silence.
Mm, yeah.
And when I took that step to get extra help after a few months, and things began to really level out for me, along with other things that I was doing. Sometimes you get the cliche responses like, oh, you need to work out, which I started doing. You need
Right.
to get sleep, which I still not the best at that, but, eating better
Yeah.
and doing those things that I could control, but also following the steps from individuals who deal with these types of things,
Yes.
doctors, therapists.
Yeah.
So, yeah, those fears, they may be real to the person and how they feel. We don't want to take that away, but we want to help individuals understand through these conversations that the fears might not be as bad as we think that they are.
Yes. Man, bro, I appreciate you sharing what you did because that is real. I was thinking about as you were talking that word fear. I remember hearing it said that it could be fear could stand for an acronym that means false evidence appearing real for fear. And I think that is very apropos because a lot of times the things that we fear, it will never be as bad as we imagine it in our mind when we do the thing. Never. And so I think for certain things, we need to put that under the umbrella of let's do this even though I have a fear of it. The value outweighs the fear. I remember when I went to did some therapy and it was very difficult for me to wrap my head around talking to someone. But I was also at a point where I was like, sometimes we need a little extra help. And that is just the bottom line.
Right.
So this is just my plea to any men out here. Go to the doctor, whether that's the doctor for physical ailments or whether it's a doctor for mental. Do it for yourself and for your family because all of this stuff that is around us looking weak or, um, not wanting to be a burden because, oh, I got to take care of myself and I don't want anybody else to have to care for me. Closed mouths do not get fed. Dad used
Hmm.
to say that all the time, didn't he?
Right.
So we have to be willing to express these things and work them out. So
Right.
I thought I thought that was really good. And this is where um kind of tapping back into what we were talking about earlier with Dr. K, who is, I can't remember if he's a psychiatrist, psychologist, but that idea that a lot of men may not necessarily lack emotions, but lack the vocabulary to describe them. And when we engage in some of these things, like some form of therapy, they can help you get the vocabulary that you need to express certain things. And so I think it really has a lot of weight to it to help us to be able to acquire a skill that we may not have. So let's see. Did you have anything else that you wanted to mention on that, bro?
No, no.
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
I said enough.
So I don't know exactly if I remember, but do you remember there being a first time that you felt like you had to hide your emotions?
Wow. First time I felt I had to hide my emotions.
Yeah.
You know, Tim, some of this stuff wasn't planned, bro. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a tough one.
yeah. So something comes to mind,
Okay.
and wow.
What?
So right now we're just talking about hiding emotion.
Right, right.
So I do recall a time uh, when I had a crush on a young girl.
Yeah,
Yes, but again, to be honest, Tim, so this had to be in the early 80s,
okay.
early 80s. I had a crush on a girl, and she was not black.
Okay.
She was white,
Okay.
but I knew that I had to hide that because
Mm,
of dad. Just
yeah, yeah,
so that question brought me to that
yeah, yeah.
because that was a pretty significant time in my life
Mhm.
where I had feelings for someone,
Right,
but really couldn't express them because that's when I felt like I had to hide them.
right, right. Yeah, that
Well, what
makes
about
sense.
you? What about you?
Yeah, good. But I'm not getting out of this one, huh?
No, sir. You done got me up here exposing myself.
Man, so as I'm thinking about that question, I can't pinpoint a specific time or event, but what I will say is that, as you know, we don't really have an emotionally expressive family. And I am. And it was kind of a lesson that I learned pretty early that we just don't really go there, really, and I didn't think it was a bad thing. I just thought we don't really talk about emotions. So I just have to kind of keep this stuff to myself. And so I think that's why this idea of men being silent, even as much as I express myself, it resonates with me because there have just been times in my life where I did feel like I just needed to be silent and, not say the thing. And I think we have our moments where we could be expressive emotionally, but it just wasn't like a regular, frequent thing. And that's just how it is. Everybody isn't like that. And especially with our family, I think most people are introverts. And so introverts are not trying to hear that. A lot of them, of course, this is generalizations, but
Right.
yeah, so I think I would just say I did learn it somewhat early, but I don't have like a specific time on that one.
Okay.
And so I think I wanted to have us transition into, we were kind of talking about depression, and men don't necessarily talk about depression. So it seems like a natural question would be, how does depression actually show up? Because if we can kind of see some of the signs or behaviors, maybe the people who are surrounding that person could be like, hey, is everything okay? So,
Right.
what would you
Right.
say are some of the ways that depression could show up in men?
Yeah, I guess so many people can disguise and mask so well. So one thing that I believe is or can be an identifier for depression is when you notice like significant changes in a person's normal routine.
Yeah.
Like, for example, uh, someone who is that person is going to show up, right?
Mhm.
When they're needed, when they're called upon. But
Right.
now something has happened because you recognize, hey, they're not showing up like they used to. Could that be depression?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, you know, um, someone that they do enjoy working, but
Right.
now all of a sudden, like their work or their job has become their real main priority. So they're trying to compensate for these feelings that they don't really understand
Right.
and fill their brain with an obligation with work.
Yeah.
Uh, it could be someone who may be not necessarily a mild tempered person, but let's just say even a person that maintains a pretty level personality.
Mhm.
But now you've noticed that they get a little more testy easier, or
Right.
maybe even angry.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, well, I wonder what's going on with them.
Right.
And Tim,
Yeah.
from our first episode, you mentioned something that had helped you in a relationship or in relationships
Mhm.
where this just popped up into my mind.
Okay.
If we notice things like that, we need to be curious.
Uh,
We need to be curious enough and care enough to start asking some questions,
yes.
because that person that is going through this situation in silence, they could truly benefit if we're observant enough to say, what's really going on with you?
Yeah.
And get them to talk
Yeah. Exactly.
instead of just assuming, you know, what is he angry about?
Right.
Or why is he working so much?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that is so true.
Yeah.
And I think the idea that depression, first of all, does not look the same on everybody. It doesn't even look the same between genders, between men and women, I would say. So I think you're dead on this idea of checking in on your friends and family and Nate to see, because I would venture to say, bro, most of the time we get a feeling, there is some sort of evidence to say that somebody is not acting like themselves. Like, this is interesting. Just like you said, if they're normally pretty chill and mild tempered, and then all of a sudden they like rah rah. It's like,
Right.
okay, something is not adding up. So I think us just being present in our relationships is going to help us to be able to spot those types of things.
Being present. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Being
Yes.
well, to kind of round this section out, if we do come across somebody who is off or they're not on their A game or what have you, what can we actually do? Like, what can friends and family and onlookers do for somebody who may be experiencing that or depression or whatever? And we've mentioned a few, but what would you say are some other things that we could do, actually do, not just think, not just say, but do?
Right. Proactively maintaining relationships is going to call for involvement.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of and we don't want anybody to feel, overwhelmed by what we're saying.
Yeah.
Again, this is about recognizing, and even if you can only do one thing, that one thing might just be that thing that helped the person to overcome this particular situation, or it might be the one thing that helps them to at least get going in the right path.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, maintaining a good workable relationship, which means basically just checking in with your friends,
Yeah.
hey, and it's not just we kind of get wrapped up in the what's good, bro? How you
Yeah.
doing? And but we're not really looking for the answer to that
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
So we have to take it a step further than just being present and checking in. After we ask that question, then we need to listen.
1000%.
Right. Listen. And even if we can't do anything to help them in that situation, just by us listening, that may be enough.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes people just need to be able to express themselves,
Right.
I mean, this to me brings me back to my story of us being in the Jenny B going to the hospital and y'all, you and Fika taking me to go watch movies for us to eat, for us to just relax. That's what you did that was so helpful. And sometimes I think we get it in our minds that we have to do some huge grand gesture for somebody who's going through something, or we need to be able to give them $1 million to help them, and that is just not it. Sometimes some of the smallest gestures can go such a long way. Hey, you want to go grab some coffee? I mean, just to be able to get them distracted or, not focused on whatever the thing is. Um,
Yeah, let me just butt in on that.
yeah, yeah,
It's funny how thoughts just come into your mind. But remember when Belen and I, when we stayed with you guys the other weekend, right?
yeah.
And you said something that it's just funny how when people make statements, you never know the impact or how long people will remember that.
Yeah, that is so true.
But you were talking about Winston.
Hmm. That's my dog,
Yeah, yeah, Winston is. But you were telling me that the bond that you have established with Winston, you would have never thought that you would have had that with an animal.
Yep.
And I appreciated, one time you had mentioned like after having maybe just a tough day or whatever, Winston would just come up to you and just look at you.
Hmm.
And you was just like, that just made you feel like, okay, this dog really loves me.
Yeah.
And so that came to my mind, bro, because we're talking about what an animal can give you.
Right.
So in this relationship thing, and as we're talking about individuals that are, maybe slowly deteriorating in silence,
Right. Right.
if an animal can give a person a sense of oh, wow, feeling better, feeling
Mhm.
comfort, feeling a connection, then isn't that possible for a human to give that to another human?
Yeah.
Yes. So sometimes all we have to do is be present. It's not like Winston was saying, "Hey, Tim, good to see you." That dog didn't say anything to you.
Not a word.
No.
Not
And
a word.
sometimes that's the beauty of it. Sometimes we don't need to even say a word.
Yeah.
Sometimes we just need to be present.
Yep, that is so true. Man, so powerful. Well, we're gonna keep this thing moving along and come to one of my favorite parts of our show. We call this the relationship X-ray.
The X-ray, you going under the X-ray. All right.
So this is where we kind of stop looking at what is easily visible and examine what's happening underneath a thing. And so our X-ray question that we're going to talk about is what's harder to do? Ask for help, admit you need help. So that's what we're thinking about. Is it harder to ask for help or admit that you need it? All right, big bro, I'm going to come to you first. What say you?
Another good question that's worth a little meditation before answering.
Yeah.
I would right now, I would go with admitting
Uh,
needing help. That's what
okay.
I would go with.
Yeah, man. I think for me, asking for help is the harder one for me because I can, in my mind, know I could really use some help with this thing, that thing, but to actually ask for it, sometimes it is so hard. But I really believe that this for me is a pride problem. Just too proud to have to openly admit that I can't handle this thing on my own. And that is just so sad.
Well, it's that's the same trait for me.
Yeah.
The exact same one, pride, because I feel like, why can't I
Mm-hmm.
handle this? So the pride is telling me
Yeah.
you should be able to handle this, regardless of what the it is.
Mm. Man, you are saying exactly what I feel as well. Now I will say that here in the more recent years, I'd say maybe in the last 5 years, I have gotten so much better at asking for help when I need it and, just trying to push my pride to the side. And for me, because I'm always trying to be the next best version of myself, this is such a necessary thing for me to conquer things like this and not be so prideful. And I think what helped me as I'm thinking, like you said, stuff just comes to your head when we
Right.
get into these conversations. But around that time when Jenny went into the ICU in 2019, and then we came to the pandemic in 2020 and the world kind of came to a stop. It was so interesting. That time had such a tremendous impact, I think, on the world. But then to get a little more granular for my own situation, I think when we stopped, I realized how much I was burning the candle on both ends. And I burnt out from always doing. I just heard this recently. We don't know, we're always a human doing instead of just being a human being. So I was doing, okay. And so from getting burnt out, it almost forced me to ask for help because I couldn't do it on my own anymore. I had to ask for help. I had to really be mindful of my energy because I couldn't do everything that I used to do. I mean, I couldn't even cook dinner as much as I used to do because I was so burnt out. I didn't have energy. I literally had energy to go to work, get there, do the work, and come home. And I was a vegetable by the time I got home. I couldn't do anything but sit on the couch. And so, man, what a hard lesson and a hard way to have to learn it. But
Right.
once again, the lesson was learned.
Yeah.
So, we try to figure it out. I think the important thing is to learn the lesson. Sometimes it has to be a hard one to learn, but if you learn it, that's the benefit.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. No.
man, we've learned and had a lot of good conversation today, bro. So I thought I would ask, did anything change for you within this conversation? Did you have anything revealed to you, or just, maybe anything that you want to take away from our discussion today?
So I could probably wrap that up in saying something like, we we want to encourage people, and through this is what I feel like we've been trying to do through the conversation, that our self-preservation is worth the conversation,
Yeah.
which could also be translated, don't remain in silence.
Yeah.
Talk to someone,
Hmm. Yep.
because uh, that bearing the pain in silence is painful,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Agreed.
there's not a lot of growth that you can accomplish there. So,
Yeah.
and then also, f- it doesn't take a lot to be involved with someone that may be in silence. It doesn't take a whole lot. Just like we mentioned, just sometimes just being there, letting that person know that you're actually present and you're
Yeah.
listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness. I'm thinking about us talking about strength. And, it seems like we have to redefine some of these words.
For sure.
You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I do. Yes.
Because we have this idea of what we think things mean, and then it causes us to be so unhealthy. And this idea of strength, because, we're the men, we have to be strong, we have to, carry the world on our
Right.
shoulders. And maybe
Yeah.
strength is us just being honest.
Right.
Maybe strength looks like admitting that we're hurting. My goodness. Mm,
Right.
can't say that.
Not pretending.
Right, yeah. Maybe strength is saying that I need help, and maybe saying it before we hit rock bottom.
Hmm.
You know,
Right.
I had to get burnt out before I figured out that maybe I should ask for help. So,
Right. And I had to have emergency surgery, and risk paralysis
uh,
before I said, "Oh, I need some help."
wow, wow,
So I agree. I totally agree with the idea of changing the vocabulary,
yeah,
changing the mindset, which will change the actions,
yes,
which will change the accountability. Maybe it's not the strongest thing, it's not, I've got this, but man, I can't do this by myself.
mm,
People don't think that there's strength in that. Well, to recognize, first of all, that we have communities. All of us have communities. Some may be a little larger than others, but we have communities. And when we share our truth in these communities, somebody's going to hear it.
yes,
but we have to share it
Yeah.
for someone to be able to hear it.
So true. And goodness, I had another thought, and I know we're running a little long, but I'm going to hack this up, but I think you'll be able to get the general idea. I remember this horse, maybe it's like a Belgian horse or something. It's one of those big ones that on its own, these are fake numbers, so you can fact check me later, but so they're not real. But let's just say this one Belgian horse can pull 8,000 pounds by itself. Well, you would think, okay, if there are two horses, they would double it. Well, when it's two of these particular types of horses, they can quadruple what they pull. I want to say they could, then pull 32,000 pounds. And if that doesn't illustrate to me the strength of us working together to live this life, like, man, you can carry so much more weight when you have somebody
Wow.
that's beside you,
Right.
helping you, just keep going, gritting your
Wow.
teeth and,
That's right.
just going and it keeps you moving, having people in your life that are going to hold you accountable, that are going to help you, that are going to be there for you. So it just made me think about that when you we're talking about those different that we can't do this alone.
That's right.
And I think I would like to say to all the men who may be listening to this, I am nobody. However, I'm going to say that we are giving permission to all men to become fully human. Okay. So you have permission to feel all the feelings, to have all the emotions,
Right.
and all of that. I think we owe it to ourselves and we owe it to the people that we love and that are in our lives to be fully human. And being fully human does not mean that we're just walking around crying because the wind is blowing. It means that no, it means
Oh
that
boy.
we can have empathy. It means that we can be strong when we need to be strong. We can be happy when we have good things that are happening. All of those things, bro. I think that will be so helpful for men in general.
Agreed. Yes. That's a good point.
Uh,
Yeah.
that actually, we're gonna be getting out of here, guys. But we just had a couple other thoughts that we wanted to mention. There's a psychiatrist named Daniel Siegel, who I read one of his books and he talked about something called integration. And basically, the basic idea is that mental health isn't about pretending that certain parts of yourself don't exist, but in fact, it's learning how to bring all of the different parts of yourself together in this like integrated fashion where everything works in tandem. So your confident part, your scared part, your breathing part, the hopeful part, all of these things that makes us who we are. And what a beautiful thought that is. When we work on all of that, it helps us to be a fully functional human being. You know,
Yeah.
have you ever heard that guy?
I have not, but it makes a lot of sense though. Yeah. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it really is. So, as we kind of wrap things up, we wanted to go into our rep for this week, and I'll let Shu break that down to you guys.
Yes, it's very interesting. We've had a full blown conversation, right, bro? So,
Yeah, for sure.
you know, at the beginning we kind of started out talking about the blueprint, about the relationship that we're based this episode on, about that relationship with ourselves. That blueprint is really going to translate to the blueprint of any other relationship that we have, how we treat ourselves, how we view ourselves. So we want to remember that strong relationships are built the same way that strong muscles are, one rep at a time. So the rep that we want to leave everybody with from this episode is uh, if you can, we want to encourage you this week to reach out to one. And we're not talking about reaching out like that, we we mean a real reach out, not what's up, hey, what's good, how you doing, but really, how are you feeling? How are you getting along? And then give that person a gift. Tim, I thought you was gonna ask me what gift you talking about,
Oh
bro.
yeah,
But
what gift are you talking about?
man,
Man,
we're not talking about $1 million either, right?
right,
Man,
right.
no, that it is a gift that we're capable of giving, and that's just our full attention.
Mm,
Just really listen and listen with the intent to listen, not the intent to fix,
right.
to compare his story with yours, to criticize. Listen with the intent to listen. And at the end of the conversation, if you're able to do anything productive, then try to do what you can. But we just want you to reach out and give that person the gift of listening. And then later on, you might be able to ask them, is there anything that I can do to support you? And if they respond, then do your best to follow through.
Yeah.
Check back with that person, in the next couple of days and see what you're able to do to really help. Because that suffering in silence is very painful.
Yeah. Well,
Grab a coffee,
yeah,
get some lunch,
yeah,
shoot some hoops, go to the gym, take a walk, go to the pool. It's hot outside,
exactly.
whatever.
It's getting
Yeah.
real hot. Yeah, that's your
So
rip because y'all are not gonna have us doing all the work up here. Y'all got to
that's right. That's your rep. REP.
right.
Man.
Yeah, definitely. If you can do that, I think it'll be really, really important and considerate for whoever you think of. Let's see. And also, if you are able to do this and reach out to somebody, we want to hear about it.
Yes, we do. That's right.
So how could
Yes.
they reach out to us?
Well, that's another good question, but you can hit us up on our YouTube channel at Relationship Explorers Podcast, or you could hit us up on Instagram at Relationship Explorers. And we'd be happy to hear from you guys.
Yeah,
Either way.
we really would. If you were able to reach out to somebody and how it went, because we're putting in those reps, we got to build these healthy relationship muscles. So if while we've been talking about all of this men's mental health, if somebody came to your mind immediately with our conversation, please know that that's probably the exact person that needs your rep this week.
That's right. Yes.
So a lot of times we'll think about people and we get distracted and never reach out to them or something. But if you can actually reach out to whoever came up into your mind, I think that would be good. And let's see, just one last thing, a little safety note that we wanted to mention to everybody before we wrap.
Yeah, that's right. That safety note is that from our conversation today, if this conversation brought something up for you, please don't feel like you have to carry it by yourself.
Yeah. Reach out to somebody that you trust. Maybe it's a friend, a family member, a counselor, your therapist, anybody that you actually feel is trustworthy. And if you are struggling in a way that feels overwhelming or unsafe, please don't hesitate to reach out to any other qualified mental health professional, or even there are crisis centers that are available depending on what city you're in as well. I think at the end of the day, the message we want to say is that you do not have to face this thing alone. Even if you feel alone, you don't have to face it alone. So that about does it for us here. Just a quick reminder, we are not relationship experts.
No, but we are relationship explorers.
Yes, indeed. We're learning
And we're growing,
and we're
and we're
so
glad
glad
you're
you're
on
on
the
the
journey
journey with us.
with us.
Please
Keep
keep putting
putting
in the
in the
reps.
reps.
We enjoyed it. And until next time, we
That's
hope you
right.
keep loving each other.